Wow.
So,
you had Chelsea Handler here last time?
yeah.
This is going to be 100% less straight sex talk, but go ahead.
There was a lot.
There was a lot.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to start by asking you this. Sue Ellen said, do you want to come sit on the stage while I do the introduction? Knowing how long it was, would you say we made the right choice?
No, I feel we didn't.
Yeah, we stayed. It was a little awkward. Yeah.
We stood behind the sign.
Yeah. Well, you've had your time, Sue Ellen. Here's a question, because
Okay.
you're a tech expert.
Okay.
If I have one of those Netflix DVDs still that I haven't returned,
Yeah.
is that mine now if they stop doing that?
No, they've been charging you ever since. Your credit card.
Okay, got it.
I actually found one the other day.
Did you really find one?
Yes. It was Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
That's fantastic.
I'm
You
keeping
waited
it.
so long, there's a remake coming out.
Is there? Yes.
Yeah, there's a
That was
Jake
one
Gyllenhaal.
let me just say that was one of the finest films ever made.
Yeah, the authenticity
Exactly.
to the bouncing
We
community.
can do this the hard way, or we can do this the easy way. I use that in my reporting.
Well, I'm going to use that as a perfect segue, because I think you are an interviewer. Your style is tough and fair. I respect that it's fair, but as a listener, I love that it's tough.
Okay.
And I think everybody knows that. That's not a secret. My question is, why do you think so many people still come on knowing that they are...
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy.
No. Well, I have a premise. A lot of people don't. Like Mark Zuckerberg is not talking to me anymore as an interview subject. But to be fair, the first time he almost fainted and almost sweat to death. Yeah. And it really, literally...
That you were asking him about privacy. Yes.
And he started sweating. Remember like Albert Brooks in broadcast
Yes.
news? That's what happened.
Yeah.
And
usually people don't do that when they're telling the truth.
Right, exactly. And so he came again later to another interview, and he did it at his headquarters at Facebook in Silicon Valley, and I guess he felt safe there. And we were doing the interview, and we were talking about Alex Jones, and it wasn't a good topic for them because Alex Jones is a heinous piece of shit. And I was like, why is he continuing to break laws on your platform, the rules you have? And he was giving me this mumbo-jumbo about the First Amendment. I kept thinking he really should have finished Harvard because he didn't know anything about the First Amendment. That was my internal thing going on. But then he shifted it to the Holocaust, which I was like, no, never shift to the Holocaust if you didn't take history.
Yeah.
And so he did, and he was using this. I was just looking at the transcript because I'm finishing up my memoir, and he was like, as a Jewish person, I still want Holocaust deniers on my platform. And he said, they don't mean to lie. And I was like, that's the definition of a Holocaust denier, but okay. And he got in big trouble for that. He got in huge trouble. So he doesn't talk to me. But why do they come back? I honestly don't know. I don't understand it. I think I'm funny. I think they like that. I think smart people like to be challenged. I think they get bored with these kind of talking points interviews and suck up interviews.
Well, but here's my premise, is that you have a very strong bullshit detector, which I think people are aware of, but I think they also know you won't ask bullshit questions. You will ask questions of substance. So if someone believes they have a story to tell and they feel like it hasn't gotten a fair shake, and I think a lot of egomaniacs go on your show.
Yes, they do.
And I think that egomaniacs
I
always
just had Chris
think,
Christie, that's why you
yes,
asked
no,
him.
I listened to Chris Christie, and it was a very civil conversation, but one thing you kind of kept reminding him of is his current polling position.
Yes, I did, yes. 1.8%.
1.8%. Yeah.
It's better than Mike Pence, but go ahead.
Yes. So I think that somebody like Chris Christie, who again, and I think a lot of people, I don't mean egomaniac. I think if you run for president, right, you've got an ego.
That is correct.
And somebody like him thinks, I'm smart, and I'm going to go on this smart podcast, and even if she doesn't agree with everything, because there are some things you agree with him on, right?
Certainly.
Even if we don't agree on everything, I will seem smart on her podcast. Do you think that's maybe the effort they're making?
No, I actually think they smart people like that. Like Steve Jobs came and was interviewed by myself and Walt Mossberg at various times, 8 to 10 times. This is not someone who did anything outside of the bubble of his control. He was a very controlling person. And I think he liked it because it gave him a chance to think. What happens with a lot of really powerful people, and I interview probably almost every world billionaire or who become a billionaire, is they get it's an expression I use a lot, which I kind of like, which is they get licked up and down all day.
Yeah.
And they start to think that everything they say is correct. And when someone challenges them, they either go two ways. One is they hate you, or they go, oh, wait a minute, I remember what it was like when I didn't have people lifting me all around the world and violently agreeing with everything I say. And I think they like that, and so it gives them a challenge. And so if they're people of maturity, they like it. If they're not, they think they can best me. That's another thing. They think, I'm going to get that lesbian. I'm going to get her. She's so famous. And in some ways, I think they have things they want to say, and they know that they want to think them through. And I think I help them think. Like, I'll say no. Like,
a thing you say that I also really enjoy for its authenticity is sometimes you will just say, come on.
Yeah.
But come on, though.
Yeah.
And so instead of actually drilling down,
Yeah.
because I think... So you also had Savannah Guthrie recently.
I did.
You co-hosted an episode of
Yes, she was a
Pivot.
guest host during Scott-Free August of Pivot, yeah.
And you were talking about the different interviewing styles you have when you are one of the co-anchors of the Today Show, or thank you, Joan, versus someone who has an hour with someone, and she sometimes in real time has to challenge a politician and lay out all these things.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes, I think, for a listener, the risk of word soup. Whereas when you just say, yeah, but come on.
Yeah.
Then it puts it back on them to explain it.
That's right. And I often point out that they are doing talking points. And so with Chris Christie, I kept saying, well, that's your talking point on this. And then he knows he can't go to the talking point. So he has to actually have another word.
I was heartbroken to find out. When I started my show, I thought politicians would make good guests. And I realized it's more fun to talk about politics.
Yes.
Because politicians, first of all, they answer the question they wanted you to ask.
That's correct.
And they will actually just do a full talking point. And if you don't stop them, they'll just do it again.
Right. And they don't answer what you're actually... It's interesting, speaking of a Martha's Vineyard aficionado, Obama, I interviewed him. And I had an interview with him, and they had given me 30 minutes, which isn't a lot for me. I do very long interviews. And then they took 10 minutes off my time for some YouTube lady. And I was like, what the fuck? You gave it to the YouTube lady, my 10 minutes? And so I was cut. And it was about encryption, which I thought was really important at the time. There was the big FBI fight with James Comey, the Apple thing. And Barack Obama talks a lot. And when you're the president, you get to talk a lot. And he talks in paragraphs. And it's a real problem if you only have a short amount of time and you want to get answers.
Plus there's all those,
yes. Yeah. So, and I get it. I get it that you're president, nobody interrupts you. And so what I did is, he sat down, he's a very tall man. We were sitting in my red chairs, and we're very close, almost knee to knee. And I lean in, and I said, listen, they cut 10 minutes because the YouTube lady cut 10 minutes. I'm really kind of pissed about it, but it's okay, no problem. I said, but you tend to talk a lot, and you talk in paragraphs, and I hate paragraphs. And I've got to tell you I'm going to interrupt you, which you're not used to because everybody licks you up and down all day. And so if you would not do that, that would be great. But if you do, I'm going to interrupt you, and so try to answer the questions quickly. And he looked at me, he said, I heard you were obnoxious. And I said, yes, I am. And then we started, and it was great. It was fast because he was like, I made him self-aware.
That's a real head game.
It was a mind fuck.
Yeah.
It was. I do
it's a
mind
really
fucks.
good mind fuck.
I do mind
thought
fucks. Yeah.
My favorite mindfuck story of all time is, I forget which NBA All-Star game, but before the three-point contest, Larry Bird famously walked into the locker room and said, which of you motherfuckers are finishing second?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good.
That's good. But this one, I'm moving this one up.
Yeah. I do it with a lot lot of people. And sometimes, I sometimes do unfair ones, like especially if someone's particularly sexist that I think, or something like that. When backstage, I'll tend to go, oh, did you lose weight? And they're like, no. I go, oh, you were a little fat. Like, or something like, because it's only to men, by the way. I only do it to men because they don't know what to do because they do it to women all the time. So I tend to try to neg them a little bit before, and it works beautifully.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Elon's really easy that way.
Elon's easy to neg.
Was.
Yeah,
he's not speaking to me now.
He did call you an asshole recently.
He did. Yes, he wrote
but
me an
it
email.
wasn't a personal email, and I think that's nice.
It was a personal
that he
email.
took the time to let you know
type it out.
one-on-one.
I know. We used
Now,
to talk.
you say...
We used to talk a lot.
And you used to talk a lot? You
Yes.
were friendly?
Not
Would you say
friendly,
he's doing
no.
Would you say he's doing a great job with Twitter or a terrific job with Twitter?
He's doing a great job at SpaceX.
Yeah.
He's doing a
He
great
is, though.
job.
You genuinely think that?
I genuinely think that, yes. I think Gwen Shotwell is, who's the actual CEO.
Right.
But yes, indeed.
What do you think how you said, and Suella mentioned that really wonderful Vanity Fair interview where you said, not only is he killing at the time Twitter,
Yeah.
you think it's killing him, right? Like
Yes.
it is taking its toll. Where do you think this ends? Is it possible to predict?
Well, it could go a lot of ways, right? Personally, I think it's moving in the Howard Hughes direction of the story.
Right, yeah.
He's going to be in Las Vegas with long nails and Kleenex all over his naked body. If he's not there today doing that, he could be doing that right now, enjoying a rave.
He's going to build X out of wood.
Right,
It's gonna be the
right,
only,
exactly.
only app that's
I do
wood.
think it's moving in that direction, honestly. He used to be 10% what you see now, all the stuff on Twitter, whether it's misogynistic or homophobic or anti-trans, which is really particularly galling because he has a trans kid. Or whatever is happening. I don't even think it's right wing. I'm not even sure what it is. Conspiracy-minded, meme-minded, stupid jokes. Essentially a 12-year-old boy who's been raised on sugar pops and no parents forever.
It's heartbreaking when someone that age discovers memes.
I know, exactly. 52.
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
and
it's way too late.
52-year-old man doing a boob joke is just not good. So he was maybe 5% that. And so you'd see it pop out. Like he'd get mad during COVID. He got mad at me because I criticized him for pushing people into his factories. And he said, I'm going to leave this interview. And I go, go ahead. And he goes, I'm going to do it. I go, go ahead. He goes, I could do it. And I go, okay. And then he doesn't go, right? Things like that. So you'd see little bits of it pop out every now and then. And it seems to have taken over his personality. And then 90% of the time, he's quite funny, brilliant, obviously. But now he's turned. I don't know. It's like butter in the summer or something outside. It's just weird. And I don't know why. And I don't know why he wrote, "You're an asshole" to me. I criticized him mildly about something, about Starlink and Crimea or something. I didn't even criticize him. And so I don't know what's happening to him. He's also surrounded by a lot of really terrible people who he pays. And so I don't know. It could end badly, yeah.
But here's one of my questions for you. It could end badly, but let's say in the end it's $42 billion he set on fire and threw out the window.
44.
He's still fine.
Yes, because SpaceX is doing really well.
But isn't that also a giant problem, is that somebody can make a $44 billion mistake and land on their feet?
Yeah, I think more to the point is his control over Starlink and SpaceX and things like that. And so that's what I focus in on. I think Tesla's got a real challenge because lots of people have Tesla, but there's a lot of competitors now. I've been spending a lot of time talking to all the car makers, and especially the EV and autonomy stuff. Google's way ahead, Cruise is way ahead, Mercedes, all of them are coming in with cars. And Toyota, the minute Toyota enters the picture, it's going to be curtains for Tesla in a lot of ways. Even though he's way ahead by a couple of years, people are going to catch up. But SpaceX is a critically important piece of infrastructure with Starlink and also launching satellites. And there's a good piece finally in the New York Times about this, that he controls 50% of low Earth satellites. That's crazy. So he's now deciding what the battle should be in Ukraine. And he's crazy, right? Not that generals aren't, but, or
Sure.
elected officials. I mean, okay, but they're elected. And so this guy is deciding he doesn't like something and he just turns off their satellite. That to me, that's where he's more frightening to me in that regard.
You recently gave a wonderful commencement address at Cooper Union, and there were a couple things I wanted to ask you about. And
Sure.
one thing that I feel like we don't talk about enough is the dereliction of duty from our elected officials over the last quarter century, insofar as they've passed no legislation really regulating the tech.
One, and it favors them. It gives them broad immunity. It's called Section 230. You might have heard of it.
Yes, of course.
It was passed in the 90s. I actually wrote about it for the Washington Post. And so they have broad immunity to do anything, essentially. They could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, for example.
And maybe get reelected even.
Yeah, and reelected.
So what is it too late, I guess is my question. Because here, again, and you will know this answer better than I, these people who run the tech, they're so powerful and they're so wealthy.
And
it feels
unaccountable.
like both parties have at different times hoped they will be their own party's salvation.
Right.
I think 10 years ago there was a thought that all tech was progressive and it was going to, serve all the liberal causes. And now I think, maybe right-wingers are more excited about turning the keys over to Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. So is there any hope for the government to step in?
Look, I've never seen an industry, the top 10 companies in the world, except for Saudi Aramco, are tech companies. The top most valued, and Apple's a $1 trillion company. Microsoft is a $2 trillion company. Google is $1 trillion. And so they're the wealthiest companies in history. And if you look at the top 10 richest people, 9, again, is just the LVMH guy and tech people. So the most powerful people and most powerful companies on earth are tech companies, and they have no legislation at all against them. Now, I'm not a big regulatory person, but Wall Street has legislation, pharmaceutical, maybe it's broken in some ways, but healthcare, pharmaceuticals, planes, everybody has legislation in some fashion. Tech has none, like zero around algorithms, around privacy, around antitrust, around anything. And you sit there and you're like, what in the world are our public officials doing? And they've tried. Amy Klobuchar is one. Senator Klobuchar tried to pass legislation. It got slammed down because tech lobbyists. Lena Khan, who's a really smart head of the FTC, is getting slapped around by tech companies. Judges, everything's being decided by judges, which it should be by legislators to create laws. And so I don't know of any industry that's been allowed to, in an unfettered way, use every bit of data from all of us. And by the way, we paid for the internet, right? We did. You did. I did. The U.S. taxpayer paid for it, and they're making all the money from it. And they talk about they innovated it. Well, Elon Musk, for example, he talks about the government's terrible, this and that. He has got the biggest loans from the U.S. government, and it saved Tesla. We didn't take warrants in the company, the U.S. government didn't, and he gets all the money and he gets to insult the government. I'm sort of perplexed as to why that is. And again, I don't think there should be a lot of legislation. I just think there should be one.
Just one?
Two. A national privacy bill.
That wouldn't be bad.
That wouldn't be bad.
And it seems strange that people wouldn't want to
Antitrust. And now with AI, guess who controls all the AI? Let's guess. Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Meta.
I was hoping it was
Elon
us.
Musk, OpenAI, stuff like that.
You studied propaganda
Yes.
in college.
Mm-hmm.
You were maybe a little ahead of the curve of realizing the appeal of Donald Trump the last time out.
I did. I was.
And also how the media covered him. Do you have any optimism based on what you've seen so far, that the media is better prepared for what is certainly going to be this second run at it?
I feel better about lawyers because they're the ones that are doing things, actually, holding him to task, lawyers and courts and judges. I feel better about them. It's the problem with him is when he first ran, I watched every Apprentice. I did. I have to admit it to myself and everyone else. But I understood his appeal right away. He's a version of a rich person, like the guy, like the Monopoly guy. Oh, he's a rich guy, and full of lies and full of bluster and bullshit and bankruptcy and everything else. But what was interesting about him was he had self-deprecation. He did, and he's funny, whether you like him or not. It's not funny anymore. It's turned again. He's turned too. But he had some level of that, and he did appeal to a really unhappy populace who didn't feel heard. And I think that's and then was further radicalized by online stuff, like whether it's Facebook or wherever, and Fox News, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the media did a terrible job at the beginning because he was entertainment, right? Remember when Ariana Huffington put him in the entertainment section?
Yeah.
I was like, he's not funny, Ariana. He hates Muslims. Like, what? And she's like, oh, Kara, well, And I'm like, okay, but he seems to hate them a lot, And so they didn't pay attention. And now it is tied to, I don't think they're clickbaiting, but it's tied to ratings. It is. He's very interesting to people for some reason. He's an earworm in the United States ear. And so that's a problem. I think there is a quiet, large majority of people who've just about fucking had it with him and aren't talking a lot and just want to talk about safety of their kids or jobs or AI or something else besides this guy, and he's sucking up on the oxygen. So he's maybe past his due date. So hopefully that's the case.
Would you want to interview him for an hour? You would?
Oh, yes.
Do you think there would be any...
I'm working on it.
What do you think?
I'm being nice to people I despise.
Do you think in the end...
I always write. I write to one of them, and I'm not going to say who it is. I'm like, "Hey, girl," and he's like, "Kara, you're so funny."
So full disclosure.
And then he's like, "I'm not a girl." I'm like, "Oh, I know. I'm just kidding, girl."
We were trying, like every other late night show, we were trying to get him on in 2015.
Yeah.
Maybe early 2016, and The week we thought we had him booked, he ended up doing SNL. And
okay.
I now realize we dodged a huge bullet.
You
because
did. The Fallon thing. Oh,
well, anybody who interviewed him, because it was a time where it would have been impossible to look back on it and not see a glibness in myself.
Yes, because you would have joked, oh, look
I
at your
would have
hair,
joked,
you're
and I would have
orange.
I take also the idea of being a host seriously, where I want there to be some politeness behind it. Well, I've learned there's no value in that, so I just don't have people on I don't want to be polite to.
Right, okay.
And but it took me a while to
I
get
have a
there.
whole plan with this. I can tell it. He'll never read this.
No,
he's here.
Oh, he's not here. We saved a seat for him, but he's not here.
I think about where people feel safe. I want to interview him in the lobby of Mar-a-Lago with velvet ropes around us and maybe a steak. I happen to like steak.
Yeah.
Well done, too. And just make him feel safe.
Yeah.
That's where I want to do it.
But
I don't mind a jeering crowd. I can take a fucking jeering crowd.
Yeah,
so it's
that doesn't bother me.
Boo, from over-tanned Florida ladies. Come on.
Oh, so you want the full?
I want them there.
You pick the audience.
You pick the audience.
You cook the steaks.
I will invite maybe a few choice lesbians hidden here and there. The militia Etheridge, as I like to call it. And then suddenly, because he's scared of women, he's totally, the judge calling him Mr. Trump.
Yeah, that was very.
I love her. I wanted to send her like a fruit basket after that. Wasn't that good?
It was really good, yeah.
It was good. Mr. Trump, he's probably like.
And you think, what would be your goal at the end of it? That people would listen to it and have it. That's the thing where
he's hard to get through to, because a malevolent narcissist is really hard to interview, as you must know, because you do all these Hollywood people, but they're not malevolent. Well, some of them are. I think they're very hard to interview, but I have a few ideas of how to get to him, it'd be really hard because he's quite good at deflecting and lying and stuff like that. And what I think reporters tend to do is try in real time to fact check him, which is like ridiculous. He's a flood of lies. Like, you just watch it. And what that I think is a mistake, is you have to go at him super hard, and people are naturally polite. And so you have to sort of challenge him. I think I did it in that Parler interview.
Yes, that was very good.
With the CEO of Parler, who later got fired after the interview.
And it was on January 6th, correct?
It was. I was angry and upset, and I expressed it. And then he kept saying terrible things like, well, I'm not responsible for the violence, even though they prepared and organized it on my site. And I was like, you fucker. And he's, I didn't say you fucker. I said a version of you fucker, but...
You could hear it in your voice.
Well, what he didn't realize is the people listening to my podcast were the people who could throw him off of all the things. And he said out loud what you're not supposed to say, which is, I am not monitoring any of this for violence, and I don't care if people do violence on my platform. He shouldn't have done that. When
Apprentice Donald Trump hosted SNL in 2005, and I think he was still a narcissist, maybe less malevolent, excuse me, or maybe I'm being naive.
Yes, you are.
I remember everybody had this experience with him. If you were sitting with him in the downtime between rehearsing a sketch, he would ask you 2 questions and then start talking about himself. So he would say, where are you from? He'd be like, I'm from New Hampshire. You like working here? I do. He goes, did you see the Apprentice ratings? And it was 2005, and he had it cut out of Variety.
Oh, yeah, and he
so he
pulled
would
it out.
cut out and show you.
Really?
The Variety, like, show you how well it had
What do you think's going on there with that guy?
I feel like that's not subtext.
I
That's
would
just...
ask him, my first question, I think, would be, what happened with your parents?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like something bad.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
And I love my parents. Did you? Like, I would go into his parents until it made him incredibly awkward.
Yeah. Well, you did a thing I enjoyed a great deal with Chris Christie is you would name candidates and say, tell me 3 things about them.
Yes, right.
I think if you said, tell me 3 things you loved about your parents, and then tell me 3 things they loved about you.
Yeah, that's good. See? You're already doing it.
That would just maybe be a whole hour of him just heavy breathing.
I know, exactly. Yeah. I talk about women. I talk not necessarily about the obviously myriad of sexual attacks, but about what he thinks about women. I'd like to, I don't know if he'd make a mistake. He's like a rock. He's impermeable.
It's impressive.
Yeah, I would like a try at it. I would like a try.
You would like a crack.
I'd like a crack.
You had another a pure fun podcast. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's always fun to listen to your other podcast as well. But You did a Succession podcast.
Yes.
Now, let's just start by saying, do you think it's the best show in the last decade?
No.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty.
Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. It's really good.
All right.
That would be Yellowstone. But go ahead. No, sorry. I like it. I'm a person of the people like Donald Trump. I love Yellowstone. I don't know why. I just love it. I'm not maybe embarrassed by it.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Okay, fine. Oh my God, the hot mess daughter.
Look, we all like the hot mess daughter.
All right, okay. Kevin Costner,
did you?
badly
Here's
acting his way.
Kendall Roy
Yeah.
definitely agrees to go on your podcast.
Yes.
You know, that's a thing. Kendall would love to go toe-to-toe with Kara Swisher.
Right. Yes.
Does Logan Roy make the mistake of going on?
He did, yes.
Okay.
Oh, and Brian Cox
No, but like in the fictional world.
Oh, yeah.
Would
yes.
Logan Roy?
Yes, I did an interview with Rupert Murdoch, which I think he regrets.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you think Logan Roy would go on and then regret it, and then after the
No,
fact
he wouldn't
be like,
regret
okay.
it. He would have me killed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Fucking
surprised-
Swisher!
I don't understand why I'm not dead. That's my kind of
It is
thing.
impressive.
It is impressive.
It almost speaks to the fact they might not be as powerful as we've been led to
No,
believe.
they're just not as creative as you think they are. You know, or just like ballsy, like I'm gonna kill that woman. It's gonna be bad for her. But maybe Elon's cooking something up. But thank God he's enjoying some as in the Wall Street, allegedly in the Wall Street Journal, enjoying some ketamine.
Yeah, so I want to know. So you wrote an article in 2018 about the fact that you had been hearing from a lot of your tech connections that there's a lot of experimenting with drugs, psychedelics, ketamine, LSD, microdosing,
ayahuasca,
and this was not
Mushrooms,
to relax. This was not to blow off steam. These were people of great power and influence who were trying to expand their minds.
Yes, they think
change
they're
the way they could think.
They think they're more creative. They did.
Yeah.
I think they're correct, and a lot of them are funding a lot of the research around it, which is really promising around addiction and PTSD stuff. This is more recreational, what they were doing it for, and it was and self-medicated. I think that a lot of them are super manic minds, and they're also bored at the same time, and so they needed something to calm themselves down. I don't know what else to say. But what was interesting about it is that they thought it created innovation. You know, they thought they were much smarter. You know, that's sort of a thing when people get on pot and they think they're really smart. And then the next morning it's like, or cocaine, I guess. And they're like, oh, wow, it was amazing. And then you're like, that was
If someone ever says, I finished my screenplay on cocaine last night, will you read it?
No, yeah. You're like, no.
Don't.
No,
Yeah.
don't. Thank you for that tip. But they a lot of people were offering to go on trips. Like, would you like to do an ayahuasca trip with me, Karen? I was like, I don't even want to have lunch with you. So don't. I mean, I'm doing this only for my job. But they were starting to do it, and some of them were quite persuasive, a number of people. And I thought it was interesting, and so I started writing about it. And Michael Pollan obviously did the astonishing series of books about it, which I thought was correct, is that LSD and other drugs like this had been unfairly criminalized by the Nixon administration, and some of it was very therapeutic. I'm very interested in the therapeutic elements of it because it is showing promise. In Oregon, they're doing ketamine and LSD testing. They're doing all kinds of things in a clinical setting. And so, you know, after the opiate situation, you're like, let's find something that will help people. And so that's why I'm intrigued. But I think Silicon Valley people, it's just like having a yacht or whatever the hell they have, or buying Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, or something. That's his drug, obviously. It is.
It's a terrible advertisement for psychedelics if you take some and wake up and you're like, oh no, I bought Twitter.
It's true.
Oh,
you know, he bought it because of a comedy thing. You know that, right?
Yeah.
He bought it because of the Babylon Bee.
Oh, the Babylon Bee. Oh, right, because the Babylon Bee, which is sort of a conservative onion, would be maybe a slightly unfair.
I would say you're giving them a lot of credit.
I'm giving them too much credit. Yeah,
yes, they're unfunny.
They might claim that's a good description.
It's fine. They say they're a comedy site. Yes,
and he felt like they were being unfairly.
They got suspended for doing. I'm trying to remember who it was. Rachel. It was a trans woman, and they said Man of the Year goes to, or Man of the Year goes to, and Twitter asked them to take it down. They wouldn't. They suspended the account, and it made Elon angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were wrong to do that. Yes, he showed them. I thought they were wrong to do that.
To take it down in the first place.
Yeah,
Twitter.
I think comedy should have a wide berth.
Well, it does feel like, I mean, to be fair, right? Twitter had not figured out moderation.
Nobody has.
Yeah.
They make rules and then don't enforce them, and then they don't have any rules, and then violence and other hate stuff. Comedy should have a wide berth. That's the only
Do we
thing.
underestimate how hard moderation would be on sites that large?
I just don't think they thought about when they created them that they would do that, and they don't care. And they don't care of the damage to, for example, it's very clear. Studies show a very clear link between self-esteem of young girls, particularly, and use of social media. There's all this. There's study after study after study, and it doesn't mean that. Correlation doesn't mean causation, but it's one of the factors that started here and then we're here, and as in 20, 30 years from now, I'm sure it'll be like, oh, this is when this started. And with an unfettered moderation, it's like going back to propaganda. And listen, I pay a lot of attention to Steve Bannon. You may not, but I do. He's quite brilliant.
I do for fashion.
For
stuff.
Fashion, okay, yeah. Fashion. He looks like an unmade bed. It's really interesting.
It's the double like Izod. I know. Is just, I'm like, God love you, man.
Every time I see him, I'm like, you're not dead yet?
Yeah.
Like, what in the world is in
Well,
those
we were talking
brains?
about George R.R. Martin, the fact that he still wears that Greek fishing hat. We're like, look at you.
Yeah. Look at you.
You're just sticking with it.
What's going on in that crazy fucking brain of yours? Yeah. But he talks about it a lot if you listen to them. I spend a lot of attention to right-wing people because they were the first people to get on the internet and use it because they were left out of mainstream media for the most part, which was center, left, center, right? And not right, but center, pretty much center left. And so they were left out, and they used the internet a lot, and he did, and so did Alex Jones, and so did Rush Limbaugh, and Hannity with radio and stuff. So I paid a lot of attention to those people because, and what they were saying. And I did interviews 10 years ago with them, and I could see the propaganda elements of it. And something Bannon said, I hate to quote him, but he's right, is that if you flood the zone and flood the zone and flood the zone, you end up, people don't know truth from lies. And so you have a situation like, a couple of years ago when Antifa, right, which isn't really a thing, right? It just isn't. But they've made it into this sort of goblin, essentially, of the right. And on a Facebook group, someone pointed me to is a small town in Illinois, and they were all on it. They were going, Antifa's coming here. Let's get the town ready. They're coming here. They're going to get here. Let's board up our things. They're coming in buses. They had this whole plot. And I got on there, and I was like, Antifa's not coming to your stupid, shitty town. Like, I'm sorry. There's no such thing, and they don't want to come to your shitty town in Illinois, like, if they were to go somewhere. But they were convinced, and they were all, like, egging each other on. It was really interesting, and there was a lot of propaganda and everything else. And you could watch it in real time, and then it didn't happen. And I was like, look, it didn't happen. It's because we were prepared, and they knew. And I was like, oh, my God. And it goes on like that. And one of the famous ones, another person who I've interviewed many times and who also comes to Martha's interview, Hillary Clinton, was made into, it was demonic what they did to her. I know she has her own issues, but let me just say what they did to her was there was a vast right-wing conspiracy against her. And one of the things they did, and this is an argument I had with Mark, actually, was they said she was a lizard person under her skin, right?
Yeah.
And it was all over Facebook at one point, and I was like, she's not a lizard. And of course, I get on there. I'm like, she's not. I know her. I've scratched her. There's no lizard under there. Well, have you scratched her deep enough? I was like, no, but that would be wrong because she has Secret Service. I won't go into it. And I wrote both Cheryl and Mark, and I said, she's not a lizard person. Well, people should say what they think. I was like, no, they shouldn't. This is really dangerous. And I think that's the one thing.
Well, that interview, and you played a clip in the last week's episode with Savannah, or this week's, where you're talking to the parlor guy, and you're talking about voter fraud, and you say there's no proof of it.
Yeah.
And he says there's no proof there's not.
Yes.
And that's really their response. Like, you can't prove she's not a lizard person. But then he changed
it. Did you notice how he changed it? He goes, well, Kara, actually, some people feel that. Yeah. And I said, feelings aren't facts.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's true, too. Like, it's just, they just go on.
But,
I don't know if you have anyone in your family who's like, my mother hated Trump and then loved Trump. Now she's kind of on him, right? But the ability to propagandize is incredible. And I'll give you just another Hillary Clinton story. I did an interview with Hillary Clinton. It was on my thing. My mom calls me up. She's like, oh, Hillary Clinton. I go, oh, what did she do now? Because I don't know what to say. And she goes, she said this and this and this about people like me. And I was like, oh, no, wait a minute. It sounds like something I just did. And I said, no, that was my interview. She didn't say that. She goes, oh, she did. And I said, no, she didn't. I interviewed her. And she goes, no, I saw it on Fox News. That's what she said. And I said, no, I did the interview. She didn't say it. I said, go listen to the interview and come back to me. So she goes in and she goes, okay, she didn't say it. but the emails, Kara. And I was like, what? Like, it just was like, that's the kind of propaganda. So.
In our family, it's our 5-year-old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Very pro-Trump, and then it's awkward because the 7-year-old is DeSantis.
Oh, okay. Oh, that guy. I mean, do you believe, like, you're pulling for Trump over DeSantis? I don't even believe that anymore. Like,
it happened to us again. It's the same thing where you're like, well, we're not going to lose to this. I will not root for any outcome other than in the Republican primary. I can't.
But DeSantis.
Oh, he's so charming though, isn't he?
No.
Just
his
that
PR
$1 million
person called me a groomer.
He called you a groomer?
No, she's terrible. Her name's Christina Pashon. Please write her on Twitter. We left. I had a conference in Miami, and I took it out after the Don't Say Gay bill. Because, I'm a capitalist. I can do whatever I want with my money. And Governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, and Governor Newsom was like, come to our state. They were very friendly. And I like the people in Miami. I like Mr. Mayor Suarez, actually. He's lovely. And we moved it, and then she started tweeting at me. Call me a groomer and this and that. And I literally was like, I'm a business person and I don't want to give my money to Florida. And she was like, she's like, well, you're a groomer because you believe in sexualizing children. And I was like, person with no children, I have 4. So I'm not taking parenting advice from you. Uno. Dos. I'm a capitalist and I can put my money where I want. Just because you're a communist and I'm a capitalist doesn't mean you can force me to be in Florida. And she's like, I'm not a communist. I go, well, a socialist. I don't know what you are, but stop bothering me. I'm a business lady. And it went on Twitter. And then she kept going. And I was like, look, this is the longest running audition for Fox News. And you're not getting on because you're not pretty enough. And so she was great. And I didn't mean that in a sexist way.
Yeah.
I didn't. But whatever. Now he's going to slit the throats of people from OSHA.
It's crazy. Slit the throats.
There was a great tweet. It's like, Donald Trump will make a joke about it and then make it into a joke, and you believe Ron DeSantis would actually do it. Yeah. Would actually slit someone's throat.
Well, it was like how Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. They should hang out together.
They should. We are gonna. There's some
Yeah,
microphones here.
please.
If you guys want to work your way up.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. How's the strike going?
Great, love it.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's my second strike. I went through one in 2007, 2008.
How long did that last?
100 days,
Wow.
which seemed like.
Where are we now for you?
We're close.
Close.
93.
93
yeah.
days. Yeah.
And when it started,
Yeah.
May 2nd, I thought, oh God, please don't go to July. And then by May 4th, I was like, oh, please don't go to September. Because, now they talked today,
Yeah.
the Writers Guild and the studios.
Yeah,
so,
they did.
which is, any news is good news because there was nothing.
Yeah.
And, but it's a real drag. I don't know any writers who prefer being on strike
It
to
comes
working.
at a particularly bad time for linear television, as you realize.
It comes at a terrible time for linear
Yeah.
television.
Yeah.
But you don't decide when your contract is up.
Right.
And I don't think the writers made any of the decisions.
Meaning?
That, it's a bad time for the business. And some of that is due to, COVID.
Right.
Which was not the writers' fault. And some of it is due to, what happened with streaming, which was not a choice the writers made.
Right. No, but it's the facts.
Sure, it's the facts.
Unfortunately, one of the things I think about when I think, and I'm curious how you look about it, is one of the things that's happening is you're all fighting with the studios, like the Disneys and the whoever Comcast, whoever owns things. Your real enemy is tech, by the way, because they can sit here and wait you the fuck out with all their money, and they're selling toilet paper and iPhones and whatever the heck they're selling, and they're going to then AI you, and then they're going to use TikTok and everything else. And so it's really interesting to watch you in an old fight when actually they're the ones who are sucking everything down via AI and stuff like that.
But I got a plan B. You know
Okay, what is it?
Book festival.
Oh, really? I thought you were.
I can do this. Sue Ellen, we do this once every 2 years.
I thought you were going to be a gentleman farmer. I heard Sue Ellen's reference. I think she was referring to like Goldman Sachs bankers who own farms here and stuff like that.
I don't look. It is.
That's
I will
always
say
a
this.
nice
I will
look.
say this as far as having had a very lucky career in linear television.
Right.
I'm certainly happy it started when it did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be starting my career now.
Right, you wouldn't be.
And so. Even though it's a bad time, I personally, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna count my blessings.
But what are you going to do different when you get back? Because you're going to have to figure. Because kids are going to TikTok. That's entertainment. This has been a wide open space for them. how are you going to be different? You're just going to keep rolling out that same hour at a certain time.
But you can't TikTok the hour. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but like nothing's worse than watching legacy media like come out with their hat on sideways, being like, "Hey, we got cool over." Hey, check, we do TikTok now. So, I mean, I think the reality is, like, you look, our show, I mean, everybody like me who has a show, you build a brand, right?
Right.
And then you can't be inauthentic to the brand. And maybe, you run out of road as far as, like, what the future of the business is.
Why do you even need the network? I'm curious why you think you do.
I don't necessarily. I know that if I want my career to go on for as long as it's already happened, I don't necessarily think that would be the play.
I've always pushed creators to do that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, creators are the only ones that are going to last in this new entertainment paradigm.
Well, I wrote a kid's book and I signed a bunch of copies. They're going to sell them here.
Okay, good. Good start. Good start. Anyway, good luck with that.
Hey, thanks.
January 15th.
Thanks for all your optimism. By the way,
I texted him.
I've been a fan of Kara's for a long time. The first day we met is today. But we have been, because of this event, we've been texting.
Yes.
And one of the first things you said is the strike's going to go till January.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, after a lot of that, the Kill the Billionaire stuff from Fran, who I interviewed, they were really exercised. And the people that would have been more amenable were like, fuck that. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I didn't think that was the right argument to make.
Well,
I get why it's appealing. And
when she was the nanny,
yes,
the kids didn't often like how she spoke to them.
Okay, all right.
But that's
I
what
think
she was
she's
getting
very
paid
canny,
to do.
but it's a very complex situation.
It's a complex, and it's obviously it's
Are you getting uncomfortable about the situation?
No, I mean I'm uncomfortable about 93 days.
Okay,
but
all right.
I mean I don't feel like there's anything I'm going to say here that's going to hasten or stretch it out. But I do think, when you have these large labor unions, right? I mean, like it's a lot of it's herding cats isn't the right thing, but like you just try your best to come up with what is. The right plan forward for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
A lot of different. I mean, I think from the outside of this business, it looks like everybody who's an actor. If you've seen somebody on TV, you think they got it made for life, and a lot of people that's not the case. And it's certainly not the case for people who write for TV shows.
Right.
And again, I don't think anybody's owed a job in entertainment, but I feel like people who have a job should be paid fairly for the work they do.
Yeah.
So I think that ultimately that's what I'm hoping is going to happen in the conversations tonight. Because look, on a personal level, I like the people I work for, and I would like to get back to working because I am not getting laughs from my kids.
What can I say? You look fantastic.
Look, I'm obviously
very tanned
it's going to be
rested.
hard. They said I don't show up on the picket lines. You look too good.
Okay, right. Then don't show up on the picket line. You look like you've been vacationing in Martha's Vineyard.
So there's microphones here if you want to come up and ask a question for Kara only.
No, for Seth.
Yeah, you can ask me a question.
Come on,
too.
shy people.
Can I also just say something, and I mean this,
Sure.
even in the Joe Biden era, I still associate aviators with you.
Really, you should.
And I think
he was later to the mark than I was.
Yeah,
Thank
he was.
you.
You've
I don't
earned...
mind. I don't mind that he copies me.
Hello there.
Hi. I'm Martha.
Hi,
Hi,
Martha.
Martha. Come closer.
Go a little closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay. But you did it during COVID. You did it yourself.
I know, but I didn't.
Basement or your
attic.
Attic.
Yes, I did my show during COVID.
Who was in the basement? Cuomo was in the basement.
Cuomo was in the basement.
Cuomo was in the basement. That ended so well for him.
It did.
My very first interview on the new podcast was with Cuomo, and I eviscerated him, and then he's my friend now. I don't know why.
I will tell you this. He
calls me all the time. He's like, "Hey, Kara, how's it going?" I'm like, "Why are you calling me?"
He loves combative.
He does.
You could tell that he was enjoying every minute of
did.
his time with you.
He did.
Yeah.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Over here.
My name's Peter. First, thank you both. It is wonderful to have you here. I have stood behind Seth at Salt Rock Chocolate. Somehow it's a very intimidating experience.
No.
Wow.
But
I'm very single-minded when I buy
see
my
that.
island chocolates.
Exactly. No, it's wonderful to be here and to have you here. So, Kara, I'm going to ask you
Sure.
a question. Early in the talk,
Uh-huh.
you mentioned what's happening with data, the need for privacy law. Privacy law is happening in the States. It's these tiny little things,
That's
little
right.
click boxes, that sort of thing. And yet, large companies have email databases that are larger than the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
92% of all data is owned by 4 companies. At the same time, you have Facebook that's using Cambridge Analytics to do the things that they do to out George Soros as a Jewish banker, and you have Apple that's doing great things with health. And so I'm going to ask you the big question. If you could write the law, if you could come up with the paradigm to allow great uses of big data,
Right.
and really do bad things to bad people that do bad things with big data, how would you do it?
Well, a couple things. One, I would pass antitrust changes. We haven't had an antitrust shift in 100 years. Okay, things have changed. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been no antitrust, and the way we do antitrust is in a way that's horizontal, vertical. It just doesn't make any sense today because an Apple or a Facebook or Meta, excuse me, whatever they want to call themselves. They have power in different ways. And so that's one of the things. I would change our antitrust laws, right? I'm doing an interview with John Cantor, who's the head of antitrust, next week. And I just did Lena Khan. They have like tiny little swords in a battle against people with howitzers. And literally, I think I have 70 Facebook PR people on me alone. They have so much money, and it's crazy. So I'd update antitrust laws, first of all, because that creates a situation of, because I firmly believe innovation comes from the bottom, not from these big companies down. And right now, AI is dominated by the big companies. I'd like to see a ton of small AI companies come upwards. So smaller companies is one thing, and they'll never get bigger. Two, we need to have a national privacy bill. It's crazy. California has the strongest one. Obviously, Europe is leading the way. They passed AI laws already. They had privacy laws. It's this woman named Marguerite Vestager. You should listen to my interviews with her. She's a badass. They hate her in Silicon Valley. I think she's fantastic. But they're actually establishing laws. They've gone too far. That there's not a lot of innovation in Europe in general in tech. And so I would pass a national privacy bill that had teeth, that had actual teeth. It's almost like an Internet Bill of Rights that you have. You are all cheap dates to these tech companies. You get a dating service, you get a map, you get all this stuff. By the way, you paid for the maps, FYI. Again, it was from the U.S. mapping service. You get all this stuff and you trade everything for it. And what you have to understand, and I'd be happy to show you a neat trick later on your iPhones, even though they're the most privacy conscious, and they really truly are actually. It's from Steve Jobs, who was always a privacy conscious person. Is you, when you had a computer, you sat in your room, you went from website to website to website, and they tracked you. When you got that phone on you, it doesn't just say where you're going and what you search for. It says where you're going, who you then called, what you then went to. It is a surveillance device. And I'm not a paranoid person. I'm not like in a movie where I'm telling you it's a surveillance device of your life. And in the wrong hands of the wrong people, it's terrifying when you think about it. Dictators love the internet. Dictators love iPhones. They love all this stuff because they can track people in ways. And that's what I worry about, having watched. I mean, look, Hitler didn't need Instagram or whatever. They don't need these things. But think about the power of someone. Think about what Donald Trump did with Twitter compared with, JFK with TV, Roosevelt with radio. It really boosted him and they raised so much. You have no idea how much money they raised on these things. So I think I don't know what is wrong with our I think what they do, spend their time dealing with like stupid woke issues or like gays and lesbians in the military. They're still on the fights of 20 years ago. And they literally, that's what they do. And they aren't doing anything to protect regular consumers. And then we're at the mercy of decisions by, Mark or Tim but it's like a small group of largely white men in one geographic district of our country. And I have no wonder why people are angry. Like, it's just, that's my issue. So I would see privacy legislation, antitrust legislation, algorithmic transparency legislation, a whole bunch of things. There's a whole bunch of all kinds of. You need to be told when you've been hacked, because when you start getting into AI, boy, you think it's bad now. It's going to get. This AI is really, and I'm not scared of AI. I'm scared of people using AI. That's what I'm scared of. AI can be fantastic for drug discovery, for healthcare. Incredible things are going to happen with AI, climate change, and everything else. But used in the wrong hands, it's really frightening. Sorry, Dyer. Oops. Threads is fun. Threads is sure fun. Actually, it is. It's really well done. Nice job, Mark. Right. But, it's like now he looks good compared to...
I know. Is Threads going to work?
I think it will. He's
Okay.
quite good at social media, and it's actually a very good product. Listen, I'm back on it, and I got off of all that stuff.
All right, there you go.
Instagram is good too.
Hi, I'm Rick. I have a question on AI, but pretty soon you won't be able to tell what's real. You won't be able to believe your eyes. You won't be able to believe what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing that I've heard in terms of the antitrust or regulations
Mm-hmm.
will address letting people know that this was AI generated. You won't have
Right.
to have newscasters. You'll have avatars. You won't have to have Seth. They'll have avatars. And
Right.
you'll have somebody writing the
Not
script.
with this tan.
I know, yeah.
But the point of it is, you know, what we used to have is, so you saw this person who you trusted, Walter Cronkite, or whomever, right?
Right.
And you believed him, but you won't know that that's a real person at some point. You know, they can have Trump being arrested outside of Manhattan building in
Yeah, they did that.
handcuffs, you know,
Right.
and the Pope wearing, you know, puffy jackets.
Right.
But it's just going to get worse and worse.
It
And
is.
So how do you
Well,
regulate that?
Look, we've had these things since Photoshop, by the way. It's just a worse version. We've had propaganda going on. It's just that it becomes more persuasive when you don't know the provenance of things. And one of the good things about that's coming, and actually there's been some very smart legislators, and I'll use two examples. Ken Buck, who's a Republican, who I couldn't disagree with less, is fantastic on this stuff. Mark Warner, Michael Bennett, Klobuchar, obviously. There's now a bill, and I think Warner is near it, is doing it, where they have liability. That's one thing. One of the things that's a problem with these internet companies, they can't be sued. They cannot be sued. And so with AI, you can be sued. And so like Barry Diller is putting together a group of people. He owns Meredith, I think, and he's putting for copyright. So copyright infringement will be, because it's not, Google just sends you to the site. This goes into the site and digs from it. So it's actual stealing of copyright, like it's actual IP stealing. So there's some teeth to that. There's great copyright laws. It needs more stronger ones. That's one. The other is a bill to do provenance, where it's coming from, where the data, where these, you know, LLMs, everybody? It's large language models. I know it slips off the tongue. But LLMs are large language models. And in a good sense, it can work. Like medical ones are amazing because doctors can't know everything that's happening in something. I use this example. My brother's an anesthesiologist and used to talk to 3 doctors before doing a case, a difficult case. Now he puts it in ChatGPT. It gives him 10 good answers. And he uses, you know, he decides, but he gets ideas. So that's a really great version of it. So knowing where it comes from in the database, where the provenance is one. And then there should be a global meeting. I've been talking to people at the State Department about this, but and the White House is there should be a global meeting about what we don't want it to do, just like we have with nuclear weapons or cloning, which is like, okay, everybody, killer robots, yay or nay? Like, you know, it's a huge distinct possibility. Maybe we could do some of that. It's been kept us pretty safe in many other dangerous areas. So we could make a decision, okay, none of this, and come up with international standards. Not everybody's going to follow them, but if we put teeth behind it, there will be some global cooperation around it. But you're right, it's going to get better and better as it gets more and more information, and that makes it scary in the hands of Iran, China, or you know, Tucker Carlson or someone. Tucker AI. Tucker AI. How about Seth AI?
I think Seth AI would be great. I would love to have more time on the island.
Yeah. They're not going to, by the way, it's not going to take him. It's not actually. The creativity is very difficult for these systems. It spits back things. It's not sentient. That's the problem. You're going to think it's sentient. It's not sentient. It's not.
No, I feel good. I think I'm going to make it.
Yes, I think you're going to make it. I think barely.
Barely.
But it won't replace creativity. So think of the jobs that are creative versus the jobs that aren't. You know, like radiologists will be replaced. A lot of law will be replaced. A lot of, you know, now that it's coming for the white-collar people, everyone's panicking. It's already taken the blue-collar workers. Or when you think about, I've just been spending a lot of time with autonomous cars. I was riding around San Francisco in autonomous, which are really good now. I'm sorry, but they're good and they're going to happen. So the question is, what jobs does it replace and what jobs could happen? Like long-haul trucking is going to be replaced completely by autonomous trucks. So then short-haul trucking will be done, and maybe people shouldn't do long-haul trucking. So what are the creative solutions we should demand from our government to thinking about where jobs are going? So that's the kind of stuff that could be cool. But you're not going to be replaced. You're not.
Thank you.
No problem.
when I was a kid, I remember my dad once read an article and he said the last job technology will take is storytellers. And I remember as a kid hearing that and being like, got it.
Yeah. It can tell stories. Just imagine. One thing I've written in this book is everything that can be digitized will be digitized. You may not like it, you may not, but it will. It absolutely will. And you have to accept it and understand it and then figure out how you fit. And people do fit. And maybe you shouldn't work so much. Maybe you should be on the island. Maybe we should think of a new way of working and letting some of this technology do stuff. Maybe we could give people money to be innovative instead of spending it. Anyway, there's all kinds of, it's a very big opportunity.
We've got one last question here.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask you about you were mentioning blue collar workers earlier, and their jobs were the first to go because of
mechanized,
mechanized, yeah,
robots.
And also you were talking earlier about people who Trump appealed to because they felt left behind by society and people who felt left out of the conversation, and that was why he went off on the coastal elites and all that stuff. Yeah. So I was just wanting to ask you, how do you propose we try to bring those people back into the fray, make them feel a part of this country's conversation, so that way they don't feel the need to resort to the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, extremists, and the like, and so that way they don't feel like something is being taken away from them when it's not, when people are actually trying to give them more things.
Right.
So just
Except they're not, right? One of the things that I think gets lost in the conversation is the people funding this are the richest people in our country, the elites, it's rich people funding this anger. Just be aware, who's giving the money. And so that's one thing, and I think they like that idea of chaos. Peter Thiel, chaos appeals to Peter Thiel and stuff like that, because he doesn't like the system as it is. And so you cannot really fight that kind of thing. What I would say is I went to Kentucky because they were doing Silicon Hollow. That's everything's Silicon Beach, that stuff, which I hate. And I went there because Trump had gone there and promised them jobs, that coal was coming back and this and that, and then they were trying to get them tech jobs. And I went and to a town, I think it was in Kentucky or West Virginia, and I got up and I said, listen to me, your jobs aren't coming back ever. Just so you know, ever. I'm here to give you the news. When the robots come, this fat guy behind me, he's going to replace you in a New York friggin' minute. I'm sorry to tell you, it's cheaper. The minute it becomes cheaper to do that versus you, he will choose what it's cheaper to do. I'm sorry, but this is the case. You are not going to do tech. You are not trained. You have not been educated to do tech. You've got to come up with entrepreneurial activities yourself that will then create new businesses. And your government should help you and everything else. And so I think what happens is, what Trump did is he went in and said, it's all going to be the same, it's all going to be this. And of course, none of it was. He lied about everything. The air conditioning factory went to Taiwan, wherever it goes. And so I think one of the things that I liked when I did this speech, I thought I was going to get killed. I was like, you're not getting your jobs back. They're going to use robots for coal. I'm here to tell you this. You either have to move out of here or you have to figure out businesses right here, and you need to get your government to help you figure it out. And by the way, you're mired in terrible education and opiates too at the same time, which was brought to you by really rich people who, the
Sacklers.
The Sacklers, those fuckers. I'd like to get my hands on them.
Yeah, they're dear friends.
Are they good?
You've never met him.
Okay. I got so mad after watching Dope Sick. I was like, I think we have to figure out what work is, right? Because the pandemic has changed the idea of what people don't want to go back to work. People understand, why were we commuting? Why were we spending our time and wasting time doing rote stuff? And so I think we have to have a national conversation about what work is. And we don't. We just pretend what's going to happen. And I don't know how to make them less mad. One of the things when I was there, so someone got up, and my family's from West Virginia. My dad was born there. He was poor. He wasn't rich, and he worked his way up. And they're like, you coastal elites, we're the normal people, the whole thing. I'm sorry to use that. My aunt talks like that too. My aunt did. She just died recently. But, you don't care about us. And I said, I'm sorry. Have you ever been out to the Castro to visit me? I'm not a regular person. I'm a regular person. Why do I have a less life than you? Why do you get more? Why do we have to coddle you as opposed to me? Why don't you talk to me and understand my life? you know, and it was really, and then it got interesting because they were sort of like, I'm like, I don't think of you as a victim. I don't know, I've never oppressed you. I don't know what's going on in your mind. But what I do know is you haven't been heard, right? That was it. And I said, I'm here to listen to you, but I'm also going to tell you the truth about what's going to happen with you and what you need to do and what your responsibility is. And we ended up having a great discussion about they were going on about, not Social Security, but benefits for people in cities. And I go, do you know Kentucky is the biggest taker state and California is the biggest giver state? California gives back more than it takes. I said, you're a bunch of takers, not givers. So why are you yelling at the givers? And it was great. And once you started engaging them, they just want to talk about it, right? That's what I thought about. But I wasn't pulling any punches with them. And we have to think about what work is. Work is going to change drastically for everyone. You're going to do a lot less work, and the government should be. There should be a way. I don't love the what's it called? The money. I've written about it a million times. What is it?
Universal basic income.
There is a version of that that's really interesting that would promote innovation, that people would create jobs at home and all kinds of interesting stuff. But the way we work has to absolutely change. The way women are treated in terms with children, it's no matter where you are, and with healthcare, it's crazy. So I don't know. I think it could be a time of this Infrastructure Act is really amazing, actually, what it's doing, and it's putting innovation all around the country. We have to bring back a lot of manufacturing to this country. We cannot rely on China. China is a very dangerous country for our country. There's all kinds of opportunity if we just stop, obsessing over trans athletes, of which there are none in West Virginia. I had an argument with the Arkansas people. It was crazy. They're like, we're going to pass this law. I said, there's no people here. Zero. And by the way, nobody wants to have a drag show in Arkansas. They want to go to San Francisco. Come on. That's what they're doing. They're making us angry at each other. And when you go there, it changes. The dialogue changes. And I was like, come to Castro. I'll show you the naked guy. I'll show you the drag queens. They're not that scary. And it was actually a really helpful conversation. I just think we have to stop, tribalize. They want us to tribalize each other so they can win.
Very much.
And it's disgusting, actually.
Really is.
You know what?
Thank you very much, yes.
I think
Sorry.
I'm going to end on that very...
Who do you want to interview when you get back?
Who do I want to interview? Would you come on my show?
Yeah, I want you to come on my show.
Well, let's make a deal right now to do it.
All right, right now.
Okay.
But not besides me. Who would you like to interview? You asked me.
Who would I like to interview? I don't care that much.
Really?
I don't mean that in a bad way. I like talking to people, and I don't know what will be the most interesting thing to talk about 3 months from now.
Really?
And
You don't have a one interview you're like, oh, that person.
Look, I feel like Obama should have been on the show by now.
Okay, all right.
You know what I mean?
He's not doing much, so.
What?
He's not doing much.
It would be nice.
You'd like to have Obama. I'd like to have Dolly Parton with Taylor Swift.
So can I tell you? That'd be amazing.
And here's why. Let me tell you why. I went to the concert. Fantastic. She's an amazing entrepreneur, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to talk to the two of them about entrepreneurship because they're both amazing entrepreneurs. And I at the beginning of the conversation, this is what I do. I go, Taylor, I don't give a fuck about your boyfriends. I don't want to talk about them. Dolly, your sweet Kentucky home sounds lovely, but let's not discuss it. I want to talk about business because you two are business ladies. Yeah. That's what I'd like to talk to them about.
Can I tell you a quick Dolly Parton story?
Yeah. Oh, did you interview her?
Turn off the camera.
Dang.
Turn it off for real.
Come
I know what
on.
I'm like. No, it's for everybody here.
It's the internet era. Nice to meet you. But